So yeah, so as I was saying before, so we're going to be reading, we're going to start here at Genesis 32. We're just going to get, the history just leading up to our ancestors, the children of Israel, going into the land of Egypt, and also how, our ancestors thrived in the land of Egypt in the beginning, and how they became oppressed, right? And then how they basically were delivered. So we're going to cover those chapters, okay, and get the understanding, for them. All right. So now in Genesis chapter 32, we're going to start at verse 1. Now it says, "And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him." Right. So now remember, Jacob's name means supplanter. Okay. So going back to Genesis chapter 25, right? We read, about the birth of, our ancestor Jacob, okay, or Yaakov. So we know that Jacob, right, is the younger brother, the younger twin brother of Esau. Okay, Esau, who was born red, right? So we know him as the so-called white man of today. All right. So now, so it shows you that Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And it says, and when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host," right? So now something powerful happened here, right? Where Jacob was meeting with the angels of the Lord, right? So these will be the beings that, that are basically in the heavens, okay? So they are the angels of God, right? Now, we're going to look at what he's talking about here, okay? So I wanted to show. Let's go to the book of Job. Let me open up another tab, guys. So we're going to get the book of Job, chapter 1. Okay, Job chapter. Actually, let's look at chapter 2. All right, so Job chapter 2 and verse 1. Okay, now it says, "Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan came also among them to present himself before Yahweh," right? So now the sons of God are Benai Elohim, okay? That's dealing with the angelic beings, right? That stand before Yahweh night and day, okay? Those are his messengers, the ones whom he sends, right? To do his task, okay? To deliver his messages, right? To a man, okay? And you'll see these beings, right, appear throughout the scriptures. You'll read about them in the book of Ezekiel. You'll read about them, you know what I'm saying, in the book of Judges, right? The angel of the Lord that appeared unto, Manoah's wife. You'll read about, how, you read about them appearing, how they appeared to Mary, you know who was at the sepulture of Yahushai. You'll read about them, how Abraham also met with them as well. So these beings, right, who are the messengers of the Most High, right, they met, what I'm saying, with man, their meetings with men were basically to deliver these messages, right? So it shows you they have presented themselves before Yahweh, what I'm saying, our power, okay, at this present time, right? So that's why it says, and Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him, right? So remember, Jacob, what I'm saying, Jacob traveled to a city, right, that was near, that was as he was journeying on his way, right, to Aram, right. He traveled towards a city named Bethel, and that's where he had seen, the powers, right, ascending and descending, right, into the earth. Okay, and he had called that location Bethel, right, or Beth and El, which is the house of God or the house of El. Okay, so now it says, and when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanim. Mahanim. Okay. He called it Mahanim, right? So let's see what the name, right, actually means in Hebrew. So machanim, right? So it shows us here the outline of biblical usage, right? Machanim meaning the two camps, okay? So it says a place east of Jordan named for Jacob's encounter with angels. You see that? All right. And it also shows you that it's a Levitical city, right? In the territory of Gad. Okay. So it basically shows you here Mahanim, a dual of H4264 double camp, right? Mahadim. Okay. So let's go back. So the two camps, right? So now it says, and Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, right? So we know who Esau is. Esau is the elder brother of Jacob, right? It says his brother unto the land of Seir, okay? It says the country of Edom, all right? So remember, when we read Genesis 36, we're going to see the history, right, of Esau basically going into the country of Edom, right, and basically intermingling with the inhabitants that were there in the mountains of Seir, right? So he took it over and he called it Edom, right? Now it says, and he commanded them, saying, "Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau," right? So the last time that Jacob had seen Esau, right, you know, it was before he fled, right? So remember, Jacob had basically supplanted Esau, right, and basically got the birthright and also the blessing, you know what I'm saying, that was supposed to go to Esau, right? You know, the blessing basically was basically laid upon the shoulders of Jacob. All right. Now, that was the last time that he had seen his brother, right? His brother was in fury and in rage, and Esau wanted to kill Jacob. He wanted to kill him, right? So he said, after the days of mourning for my father at hand, right? And he said, then I will slay my brother Jacob, right? So he wanted to kill his brother because, you know what I'm saying, now Esau understood the importance of the birthright in which he sold. All right. So so now, Jacob is basically, trying to see uh where the mind of his brother is at this point. So that's why he's sending messengers unto him, right? And basically, humbling himself towards his brother. All right. Now it says, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. Right. So he's telling them about it, about where he was basically where he was at. All right. So remember, Esau stayed in the land of Canaan after Jacob had left, and then Esau basically left and went to dwell in the land of Seir. Right. Jacob was still in Padan Haram, right, with his father-in-law. You know what I'm saying? Uh, Laban. All right. Now it says, I have oxen and ass and flocks and manservants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. So it says, the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. You see that? So now it says, so now they're returning to Jacob and giving a message like, hey, all right. He's like, your brother's coming to meet me. Okay. Your brother's coming to meet you with 400 men. All right. So, so now just imagine what's in Jacob's mind. 400 men. What is he 400 men for? You know what I mean? If he has 400 men, that means that he must be coming to kill me or something, because it really didn't stay, if he was in a peaceful mood, or was he happy, what I'm saying, to hear about his brother. So Jacob didn't know. So it said, then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two bands, right? So in the two bands, so in the two companies, right, he basically divided them, okay, just in case something happened, right? And he's going to explain. And it says, if Esau comes to the one company and smite it, Then the other company which is left shall escape, right? So basically, one company get hit, then the other going to be able to escape. If the other gets hit, then the other will be able to escape. So this was the mind of Jacob, right? He was preparing his family, what I'm saying, in case something happened. And Jacob said, "Oh my God of my father," excuse me, or Jacob said, "Oh God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, Yahweh, which saith unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee," right? So he's basically sending up his prayer right to the Most High. Okay. He says, "I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies and of all the truth which thou hast shown unto thy servant. For with my staff I pass over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him." So this is Jacob, praying to the Most High, man, and he's literally he's pouring out his soul unto the Most High, right, asking for deliverance, right, out of the hand of his brother Esau, okay, because he is scared. He ain't seen his brother Esau in almost what, 21 years, you know what I mean, 21 plus years, okay. So he says, "And thou sayest, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for a multitude." And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand, and present for Esau his brother 200 she goats, 20 he goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams. It says 30 milk camels. It says with their coats, 40 kinds, and 10 bulls, 20 she asses, and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hands of his servants, every one by themselves, and said unto his servant, "Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove." And he commanded the foremost, saying, "When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, What whose art thou, and whither thou goest, and whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us." And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, "On this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when ye find him. And say, and say ye moreover, Behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night that night in the company. And he rose up that night and took his two wives and his two women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. It says, and he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had, right? So he sent them over. Okay. Now check this out. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the break of day. Now check this out. Now this is the part that gets really this is the part that gets really powerful, okay? Because you're going to see something, man, miraculous happen, all right? Not only for our ancestor Jacob, you know what I'm saying, but also, for our nation as well. Okay. A name is going to be given unto us. So it says, and he saw that he prevailed not against him. He touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him, right? So it says, and when he saw he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh, that you know what I'm saying, and touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, right? So this was a man that Jacob was wrestling with. Okay, so it says, and he wrestled with him. Now it says, and he said, "Let me go, for the day breaketh." And he said, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." You see that? So he told the man. So the man was letting them know. He's like, "Look, let me go, for the day breaketh." And he said, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." Right? So Jacob was adamant for this blessing, right? So he continued to fight for this blessing. Okay. So he continued to fight. All right. So remember, Jacob was already in great distress, right? Because he feared his brother Esau was going to come and kill him. And remember, he already prayed to the Most High and asked him for deliverance. All right. And remember, and also in the beginning of the chapter, you know what I'm saying, there was the host of angels, right, that he had met with. Okay. Now it says, and he said unto him, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Jacob," or he said Yaakov, right? So then he says, and he said, "Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel." You see that? So this was a powerful moment right here. Why? Because remember, Jacob sat there and he was wrestling with this man. You know what I'm saying? Until the break of day, right? To the point where the man had to basically basically pop his hip out of joint, right? Just to slow Jacob down, right? But Jacob still was wrestling with him, even with his hip that was out of joint. Okay. So then he said, "I will not," and our father Jacob said, he told the man, he's like, "Look, I'm not letting you go unless except you bless me," right? So he was like, "You got to bless me first." And he says, and he said unto him, "What is thy name?" So the man said, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Jacob," right? He's like, "My name is Jacob." And he said, "Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel," right? So let's look at this. Let's look at let's let's see what this means. Let's see what Israel means. He said, "Thy name Shem," right? Shem. Okay. Shem meaning what? Shem, okay, which means name, right? Reputation, fame, glory, the name, okay? So we're dealing with the name, all right? So it shows us here, right? Shem, right? Or Shem, okay, a primitive word, right? Perhaps rather from 7760 through the idea of define and concupiscent position. It says compared from H8064, appellation. It says as a mark or memorial of of individuality. It says by implication, honor, authority, character, right? Base, famous, named, renown, or report, right? So it's showing you that showing you that name basically shows it has, it can have honor, you know what I'm saying? The name can get honor to it, right? A name is also basically designated like a mark or memorial, right? Because a name, and as we go through some of the scriptures to show you that a name, you know what I'm saying, is above precious name is above gold, right? A good name, you know what I'm saying, is above all right. So it says also name is a sign of authority, right? It's also shows you about your character, right? Who you are, okay, as a person, right? Just like my name is Korash, right? Korash meaning you could say silence of power, right? Or silence of God, okay? And I have a spiritual meaning to my name, right? By like devoted servant, okay? Being a devoted servant, right? you know so I mean, I have the basically the paper or whatever, but to show you what exactly what my name means. But it's powerful. Okay, it's powerful. So one who's devoted to the service of God. Okay. So yeah, that's what name means. Okay. So it says, so we know what name means, right? So he says shall be called, right? Amar, right? So lo, right? On the so it says old Yaakov, right? But so direct object in Israel or Yisrael or Yisrael, okay? Or as we say in, Lashu Kodash, um, Yashar Allah, right? Some say Yasharal, all right, or Yasharel, okay? So let's see what Israel means, all right? So it says here, Yisrael, right? The KJV translation, Strong's H3478, in the following manner: Israel 2,489 times. It says Israelites 16 times, right? So outline the biblical usage. Israel, God prevails, right? God prevails, okay? But also it's also going to give us another meaning, right, as we continue reading in the KJV, okay? So basically it says the second name of Jacob given to him by God after his wrestling with the angel at Peniel. So it said the name of the descendants and the nation of descendants of Jacob, right? So the descendants, right, were also called after this name as well, right? This is where you get Israel or Israelites, okay? So we are the descendants of Israel. So it says the name of a nation until the death of Solomon and the split, right? The name used and given to the northern kingdom consisting of the 10 tribes under Jeroboam. The southern kingdom was known as Judah. The name of the nation after the return from exile, right? So as it shows you here, so it says Yisrael, right, from 82, excuse me, from 8280, H8280, and also H4410. It says he will rule as God. Okay, he will rule as God. Yisrael, a symbolic name of Jacob, also typically of his posterity, Israel. Okay, so Israel, right? This is the name that was given to our ancestor Jacob, Yaakov, right? So Israel, and he says what? As a prince, thou hast power, right? With God and with men. You see that? And has prevailed. You see that? So it shows you the reason why he has given them this name, right? So it shows you the reason why he was given this name by the man, right? You know what I'm saying? Who was an angel, okay? Who was an angel that met him, right? And Jacob said, "You're going to bless me." So he wrestled with this angel, all right? And he said, because of the strength of Jacob, right? The man or this angel had saw, you know what I'm saying, how adamantly he was wrestling or fighting for this blessing or to be blessed. You see what I'm saying? He's like, I'm not going to give up, even if you could put the most hurt on me as you want to, right? He basically he dislocated his hip, right? And he showed that he was still willing to fight for it, right? So it just goes to show you, man, just how powerful, you know what I'm saying, we are, right? So we fight against not only the physical, right, but also the spiritual forces as well. All right. We fight against those things, right? So remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against, you know what I'm saying, the spiritual principalities and wickedness in high places, right? So these are the things that we're fighting against even now. You see what I'm saying? And this is why, you know what I'm saying, we were given our ancestor was given the name, you know, Israel. For as a prince, thou hast power with God and with men and has prevailed. So we prevailed. You see that? We didn't give up. We prevailed, right? And the angel seeing, you know what I'm saying, the power and the strength of Jacob, right? He gave him this name, okay? Yisrael, right? So that means that we have taken on the name also of our deity, right? We say Yahweh, right? You know what I'm saying? Yah, right? So then you see Yasha Allah, right? Or Yisrael or Yisrael, right? You see what I'm saying? You see the Yah is there, right? The Shar, right? Which is Prince, Yah's Prince, right? Of God, okay? Or power. You see that? Yis, Shar, El, or all. All right, excuse me. I gotta go back to the to the thing, but that's where you get Yisrael. Okay, so it shows you, right? For a prince thou hast power with God and with men, and has prevailed, right? And then it says, and Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou doest ask after my name? And he blessed him there. So he's like, what you asking? Why are you asking me for my name? Right. So he gave him his blessing. He didn't tell him his name, but he gave Jacob that blessing. All right. So it's, before I finish or continue, I'm going to give I'm just going to go through some precepts, right? So I'm going to go to the book of Hosea. Hosea recaps this event as well. So this is Hosea chapter 12. I'm going to start at verse 1. Oops, spelled it wrong. So now it says, Hosea chapter 12 and verse 1. Ephraim feedeth on wind and followeth after the east wind. He daily increases lies and desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and oil is carried into Egypt. You see that? So he's talking about how Ephraim is going to be desolate. Ephraim is representing the northern kingdom of Israel. All right. Now it says, Yahweh hath also a controversy with Judah, and will punish Jacob according to his ways, according to his doings, will he recompense him, right? So you see, Jacob, right, is also another name representing Israel, right? Remember, we are still the descendants of Jacob, okay? So we weren't acting like Israelites. All right. We weren't acting like the princes of God. You know what I mean? We weren't acting in that fashion. You know what I mean? So the Lord so basically said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna call you by your original the original name of your ancestor Jacob. All right. So it says, he took his brother by the heel in the womb, and by his strength he had power with God. You see that? So by his strength he had power with God. Yea, he had powered over the angel, or overpowered the angel, and prevailed. It says he wept and made supplication unto him, and found him in Bethel, and there he spake with us. It says, even Yahweh, God of hosts, right? The Lord is his memorial, right? So it shows you right there, man. The host in which he met with was with Yahweh's host, all right? And it shows you, it says, that's why he said, and yea, he overpowered or powered over the angel and prevailed, right? So it shows you he overpowered the angel and prevailed, right? So this is why how powerful, this history actually is, you know what I'm saying, to us and for us, right? So now as we go to, let's look at this. Let's go to the book of Proverbs chapter 22. Proverbs 22, and it says this. Okay. Now it says, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. You see that? So it lets you know a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So it's better to have a good name. All right. Again, let's look up what name means here. Okay. Sem or Shem. Okay. So name, reputation, fame, glory, right? So that's what it shows you. Okay. So that's why, you know what I'm saying, in Hebrew, names always represented, you know what I'm saying, an event that happened in a person's life, right? Where they'll name, their children after something, what I'm saying, either tragic happens or something that was powerfully blessed, a blessing to them. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll name they'll name their child after an ancestor, so on and so forth, right? So and they would these names would have meanings, okay? And having a name that has meaning, right, is everything. All right. So just like all of my children have Hebraic names. You know what I'm saying? Menaniah, Adoniah. You know what I'm saying? Adaya, Ada. Adalia. You know, Adaya, so on and so forth. Right? They all have. You know what I'm saying? They all have Hebraic names that have meanings. Okay, you know so it's like a name is so that's why names is everything, right? So when you give your children a lot of these names, Bonquisha and Octavian and all this other stuff, you know what I mean? Those names, that's what they're going to carry for the rest of their life. All right. And you know what I'm saying, that name is going to represent them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that name could strike fear into people, or that name could be one to give people hope. You never know. All right. So that's why, properly naming your children is everything, man. Giving them names that have powerful meanings. Okay. So, and then also, yes, we can make the name as well. All right. We can either make it good or we can make it bad. But that's why it says in verse 1, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Right. So, so you know what I mean? So, that's why, our actions, you know what I'm saying, our character, right? It reflects, it also will reflect our name as well. Okay. So, I can have either a good reputation tied to Karas, or I can have a negative reputation tied to my name. Okay. So just like, what I'm saying with, our Heavenly Father, his name is Yahweh, right? We see that his name means, he is, or the self-existing one. All right. Self-existing. Okay. So showing you that he has no beginning, he has no end, right? He is the self-existing one. That is who he is. All right. We see that our Savior, right, our King, Yahweh Shai, you know, his name means salvation. You see what I'm saying? Deliverance. Okay, so it shows you that he that's what he was chosen to do, to deliver us. All right. So that's why when you read in Matthew chapter 1 and verse 21, it shows you that then they called his name Jesus, right? And it says he shall save his people from their sins. He shall save his people from his sins. So he will be a deliverer, right? so so let's look at this. Let's go to the book of Isaiah chapter 44, and we're going to look at verse 5. All right. Isaiah chapter 4. Well, actually, let's jump up to verse 1. So now it says, "Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen." Right. So Jacob is the servant of Yahweh, right, and Israel, right, who is the nation of people. It says, "Whom I have chosen." All right. So remember, the Lord God chose Israel to be a special people unto Himself, according to Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 6. Right. So we're his, we're that chosen nation. All right. We're called his firstborn. Okay. According to Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. All right. So it says, "Thus said Yahweh that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen." Jeshurun meaning upright one, right? Upright one, okay, is another name, right? For Israel, okay. So it's like a surname for them as well. So he says, "For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and the floods upon the dry grounds." The water representing the spirit, right? So he said, "For I will pour his spirit upon him that is thirsty, and flood upon the upon dry ground. So he says, and this is what he means: I will pour my spirit upon thy seed and my blessing upon thine offspring. You see that? So we're showing you right here the exact meaning of what the first part of this verse actually meant. And he says, and they shall spring up as among the grass as willows by the water courses, right? So showing you just how strong, right? You know what I'm saying? We're going to come up in the spirit, right? He says, one shall say, I am the Lord's, right? Or I am Yahweh's. Another shall call himself by the name of Jacob. Another will say that, you know what, I'm a Jacobite or an Israelite or a son of Jacob, right? Another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, right? So so he said, another shall subscribe his hand unto the Lord and surname himself by the name of Israel. You see that? So these are the things, man, to show you just how dedicated, man, our people are going to be once the spirit comes back on, you know what I'm saying, our nation, right? How fervent we're going to be, you know what I'm saying, about being called Israel, right? One's gonna be happy to be, I'm a son of Jacob, you know what I'm saying? No, you know what? I have Yahweh, my power upon the phylactery on my forehead, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what? I'm a surname name myself after Israel, right? You can call me Benaniah. Yah. You see what I'm saying? So it's like Benaniah, Yah ben Israel. So it's like, so those things, man, this is what, our people, what I'm saying, are going to do, because the spirit is going to come back on us, right? To understand who we are and things like that, and be proud of the name that has been given, that has been given to us, right? Remember, the Lord took all of that away from us, man, to where we didn't know who we are. But in our spirit, right, once we hear this word, once we receive it, man, we become, we be, we be, you know what I'm saying? We become fervent, man, servants of the Lord. Period. All right. So let's go back to Genesis 32. Okay. So, our ancestor fought for this blessing, right? So he asked the angel for his name, right? And the angel didn't give him his name. But let's read. And it says, and Jacob, right, called the name of the place Peniel. Says, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. You see that? So some will call this a contradiction, right? And be like, well, how could he see God face to face? And no one has seen the face of God. All right. So, you know what I'm saying? Which that is true. No one has seen the face of Yahweh, our power, right? You know what I'm saying? But, but, you know what I'm saying? This is not the God in which, you know what I'm saying, Jacob met face to face. So remember, who was he wrestling with? He was wrestling with a man, all right, in the beginning. So this is who he had met face to face. So obviously, the man who he was wrestling, right, was considered a god himself. All right. So now, throughout the history, right, which we know of in the scriptures, right, remember, in the book of Exodus, I believe, chapter 23, the Lord God told the Israelites, right, that he would do what? That he would send his angel before them, and that he would be the one to fight for them, right? So remember, Joshua also met, you know what I'm saying, the angel of the Lord, you know, who basically drew out a sword, right? So remember, Joshua asked him, are you friend or foe? You know what I'm saying? The angel told him, put your shoes from off thy feet, for this is holy ground that you stand upon. Well, wait a minute, it's only one other angel that has said that to someone, right? And that was the angel that was at the burning bush, that spoke out of the burning bush, right? In representation of God. Remember, because he's a messenger. You see what I'm saying? So obviously, we already understand the parallels of this being who he had met here, right? Is the same one who met Abraham, the same one who met, you know what I'm saying, Manoah and his wife, right? We talking about Yahushua, the same one that Abraham gave a tenth of the tithe to, right? You see what I'm saying? Melchizedek, you see, who was the king of Salem, right? So we know that this is dealing with Hamashiach, Yahushua, right? And and his presence always being there. Okay, so yes, he's the one who basically he wrestled with our forefather Jacob, right, and blessed him, right, and he gave him the name Israel, right. You know what I'm saying? As a prince, thou has power, and this is why Jacob had to name the place which he wrestled with this angel. You know what I'm saying? Peniel, right? That's why he said, "For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved." So he understood his life could be he could have been killed. You see what I'm saying? You know, just being in the presence of this being, right? But he wasn't. That's why he said his life was preserved, right? The man sat there and broke the hollow of his thigh, right? Meaning his hip. He dislocated it. You know what I mean? That's why he said my life was preserved. All right. So we know that this man, this angel was operating on a whole nother level of strength. You know what I mean? But our father was sitting there wrestling with this being. All right. So it says, and as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him and he halted upon his thigh, right? So basically he was hobbling. All right. It says, therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which is shrank. It says, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. That shrank. All right. So it also goes to show you how our father don't eat the sinew. The sinew is basically like the tendons, you know what I'm saying, of the animals and stuff like that we eat. So we don't eat that. You know what I mean? Because, of what it represented. All right, how our forefathers' thigh was basically popped out of joint, you know what I mean? So basically, he just had his his hip hanging by the thread, as they say, right? He was hobbling. So that's why Jacob, like, for I have seen the face of God, for I've seen God face to face, and my life is preserved, right? So he understood that he could have been taken out, but his life was preserved. Okay, so that's the thing, man. That as we look at it, man, the power, of the name, what I'm saying, that has been given to our nation, you know, and that's why we should always take great pride, man, in, being called Israelites, you know what I'm saying, Yisraelites, you know what I'm saying, Yasharalites, however you choose to pronounce it, you know what I mean, Yasharala, you know what I'm saying, however you choose to pronounce it, okay? So, all praise and honor and glory be unto the most high power, you know what I'm saying, unto our God, Yahweh, and giving much honor and respect unto his son, our King, the anointed Savior, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, right? Or Jesus Christ, the anointed Savior. Okay. So, we're gonna end there. All right. So I hope everybody had got something from there. This, we'll go more in depth, basically dealing with verses 24 to 32. You know what I'm saying? In another class, to get the full sum of the lesson, and a lot more about the man in which wrestled with Jacob, or Jacob wrestled with to receive his blessing. You know what I mean? Because we also go through the same thing, man. We also fight. You know what I'm saying? And wrestle, man, for our blessing and stuff like that. So so we'll close out and we'll say our prayers.